Thanks for joining us for the Two Maine Friends podcast.
We're so glad you're here.
We're your hosts, Natasha
and Lindsey. Thanks for joining us on another episode of Two Maine Friends in a podcast. Last week we talked a little bit about social media and relationships and the depth of relationships. This week we thought it was important to talk about the tables that we sit at and the influences that we have in our life.
Yeah, this is a big one, and I've learned a lot of lessons over the years of who am I listening to and how do I respond to the people around me, and like how do I change based on who I'm hanging out with. And I'm not proud of a lot of that because there have been seasons that I've participated in conversations that I regret. And, you know, the only thing that I can do now is try my hardest to do better than I was back then. But I think that who we have in our life and who we allow to sit at our table is a very important conversation to have because it does play such a big role in who we are and how we react to each other, how we respond, and what we say.
Yeah, so break that down. When we say table, explain to me what you mean by the people that are sitting at our table.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think it has to do with who's in your circle, right? So now we're going from a table to a circle, which I guess is all the same. But what I'm trying to say is like we create community with people that we spend time with, that maybe it's through work, or maybe it's a church environment, or maybe it's just friends and neighbors and people we've known for years. But do those relationships add value to who I am as a person and help me become a better person? And if not, how are those relationships pulling things out of me that maybe it's what we're talking about when we're together, or maybe it's the things that we're doing when we're together. And it's important that the tables that we sit at are inviting and safe, but also push us to become more like Jesus.
Yeah, I think it's important to sit at healthy tables that are going to encourage you to be healthy. It doesn't mean that we're always making the right decisions and the right choices at those tables, but it's sitting at those tables and the people that are willing to call you out and that are willing to walk with you through those hard conversations. I think that we're all used to that age-old adage that's, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. I had a leader who used to say that to me all the time. Show me your friends, Lindsey, and I'll show you your future.
It's so true, though. Like, I say it to my boys constantly. Like, when they leave for school, I always say, make good choices and choose good friends, and show kindness, right? Because those three elements create almost the pillars of what your life is going to look like. Because if you're not making the right choices, you're not going to have the right friends, which then will put you in a place where you're not going in the right direction for life. You're headed down a very dark path very quickly. However, if you're making the right choices, you're showing up, you're on time, you're doing the things, and you have good friends in your life who can point you in that direction or pursue the same things as you or have the same values as you, then your life will go in a very different direction.
Yeah, I think it's about aligning yourself and asking, do I feel good when I leave the presence of these people? And answering that question alone, a lot of times can save us from a lot of despair. I've sat at a lot of tables where when I left the conversation, I would sit in my car and I would not feel good. I would think about all the things that were said, all the things that I said that were so against my character. There were times where people's names and conversations came up and I was a part of the conversation. We talked about our restoration story and the ping pong came a little bit of what that felt like, for me anyway. And I remember leaving environments and feeling really bad about the conversation that took place in those things. And it didn't align to who I was as a person or who I wanted to be as a person. And at the end of the day, those are the tables that I don't want to align myself with. And that was a huge lesson for me, is that if I don't feel good, it is okay to walk away.
Yeah. And I think that we need to give permission for that too, right? Because I'm a person that needs permission for like everything in my life. Okay. So And I don't know if that's because I'm the oldest child or what that is, but it's sometimes giving permission to be okay with this is maybe toxic. And I don't want to throw that word around lightly because I know that there's a lot of depth to that word. But maybe it is a toxic environment that is creating this space where the things that we're talking about are not healthy, and maybe it's really negative towards other people, or it's negative for you. And, you know, it's hard when you're sitting in those spaces and it's going against your nature. And I know that feeling because I also have sat at tables and had conversations with people that I'm not proud of because of the nature of the conversation. And like you just said, it taught me I don't want to participate in this anymore. Like, this is not who I am, and this is not who I want to be. So I'm going to remove myself from this situation and this table to make space for what is best. And what's best is healthy conversations that are productive things that are good and healthy and kind and uplifting. And having a space for that is so valuable and so important.
Yeah, and I think that those conversations don't always have to be depth-defining conversations, but if you see yourself going down a hole that is not uplifting or productive or fun for you, even just fun for you. We do a lot of fun stuff together. We play a lot of games together. We go to the beach. We go to the lake. We do a lot together. And it would be easy for our conversations to go negative and talk about all the bad things going on around us or the people around us. It's easy to get caught up in those conversations. And it's easy to sometimes talk about the things that you shouldn't be talking about because it's easier to take the attention away from yourself and put it on someone else or other things in the environments around you that you shouldn't even be discussing.
Can we slow down for a second? She always drops these truth bombs and then just keeps going like nothing just happened. But you just said something that's so key. And I want us to kind of break that down for a second. But you said sometimes we talk about other people or other things to take the pressure off of looking at us. And I think that that's huge because if we're really honest, what is the motivator behind that conversation? Like, why are we bringing up other people to talk about other people when there's so many other things in life we could talk about? And is it because we're deflecting because we don't want somebody to look at us and say, hey, I noticed XYZ. And we're not ready or willing to have a conversation about that. So it's easier to just talk about the other things around us, whether it's other people or the negative thing that happened at work or whatever. So can you help us kind of break that down?
Yeah, I think we all deal with insecurities, right? We've talked about this, that we all can go into relationships with insecurities, and it's easy to deflect things about other people that we see in other people's lives that aren't present because then they're not there to defend themselves, and then we aren't uncomfortable because they're there to defend themselves. So it's easy to deflect onto other things and bring up circumstances that sometimes have nothing to do with us.
Right.
Because we don't want to talk about the things that are going on in our life or the insecurities that we have in our life. And honestly, the tables that I sat at the time where other people's names came up and the conversation was about someone who wasn't sitting there, at the end of the day, there's this weird feeling of I'm okay because I'm not dealing with what that person's dealing with. And you kind of just live off of this endorphin of feeling good when really, when you walk away, it probably doesn't feel so good that you had those conversations or that you were a part of it. And as I've gotten older, I've realized like those conversations that I was sitting at, I was also a part of the conversation when my back was turned as well. And so when we start thinking of it like that, when people are bringing up other people or other people's situations in their lives, if you're part of that conversation, it's probably okay to assume that when you're not at that table, you are also a part of that conversation. And I learned early on that that was not the friendships that I wanted. I didn't want to have to worry about my name when I wasn't in the room. And so I started surrounding myself with the people that I can trust with my name.
Yeah, I think that's key, because if they're willing to talk about a name, then like you said, when you walk out of the room, it doesn't mean that you're safe. And I think that it's important we bring this up in conversation around friendship so that we can figure out, are we sitting at a table that we want to be at? But also, who are we allowing to speak into our life? Because like you said, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. Who you spend time with is who you're going to become like. And so if we're becoming like the people we're spending time with, are we surrounding ourselves with people that we do really want to be like? And if we're not, then it's okay to say, I think I'm going to take a step back for a minute to reevaluate what I need in friendship. And I've walked through that, and I spent a lot of years in like inner turmoil because I did sit in places that had conversations that I really didn't feel comfortable with, but I also didn't really know how, or maybe even want to stand up and say, guys, we shouldn't be doing this. Like, this isn't okay. And I regret that now, and I really want to do better moving forward. But it did teach me, like, who do you surround yourself with, and who are you willing to let speak into your life? Because they might not be speaking a specific thing about a specific situation, but based by, who you hang out with is going to eventually speak into who you become.
Yeah, I think that we are people of influence, right? We are influenced by the people around us every day. We're influenced by people who aren't around us every single day. When's the last time that you watched a commercial on the TV and you ran out and you bought that product? I did it just recently.
Of course you did.
I probably have said this in other episodes. I am a late night TikTok scroller when I can't sleep. And so in my living room right now, I have a stair stepper that I bought off the TikTok shop because I was influenced. And so it's so easy to be influenced by the voices around us. And those voices become the voices of our head eventually, and it becomes the conversation in our head eventually. And we have to protect our peace, and we have to protect ourselves from those outside influences. And what you speak over yourself is a direct reflect of the people that you're surrounding yourself with.
Pause again. Can you repeat that? Because that's a huge moment that I think we just need to give pause to, because it's so true.
Yeah, the conversations that you have with yourself is a direct reflection of the people that you are spending your time with.
You should write that down, post it on your mirror or on your fridge, get it framed. But it's true. And I can remember the season where I was, being influenced by these conversations. And eventually I became okay with the conversations and started them. And I'm not proud of those moments, but I became accustomed to what I was surrounded by. And I knew that the way to feel like I was part of the in crowd, quote, so to say, was to participate in this behavior that I wasn't okay with 3, 4, 5 months before that. But now it's just normal because this is what we do when we get together. And I think that if we were to really put into perspective, what's happening when we're all together? Is this helpful? And if it's not, then what we're saying to each other and to ourselves is going to reflect that.
And I truly believe that people feel that at the end of the day. So when you're sitting at those tables and the conversation is taking a turn, maybe it is that, I guess we focus a lot on this because we've experienced it.
Yeah.
Is probably why the conversation goes this way. But if you're sitting at a table and those people or your friend group is talking about someone who's a part of your friend group, but that person is absent, the next time that you hang out, you have now created this perception of someone. And when that person is now present and you are trying to be their friend because you consider them a friend, there is now a tension that you have created between you and that person because you've had these past conversations about them. And eventually that tension begins to show itself. And you may not even realize that you're treating them differently. And they may feel, well, why am I being iced out? Or why am I feeling insecure? Because you've created this tension for them and they can't even describe that insecurity that they're feeling, but they know it's there. And they have no idea why, but it was because of these conversations that were had in private that they weren't a part of, that they should have never been a part of, right? Their name shouldn't have even been brought up. I remember in my 20s, when I was in the college that I did, I had a mentor and she was the director's wife. And she would always say to us, like, if we said something negative about another person, she would instantly say 3 things that's nice about them. And when I tell you that breaks the tension in your head about another person so quickly, because you might have just been angry that that person got an advantage of something, you know, or you might have felt like that they had something up on you, so it was easier to tear them down. But when she would pause and say, now say something nice about that person, you kind of had to just reflect like, wow, like what I said was really nasty. I shouldn't have said that because Natasha really is a good friend. She really is a good encourager. She's a great mom. You know, you had to pause and like think about 3 great things about that person. And chances are you could think of a lot more than just 3. On the flip side of that though, when we're having negative conversations and we're entertaining those negative thoughts about other people, we start thinking those negative thoughts about us. It starts to create these pathways in our brains and those words kind of retract and come back to us as well. At least for me, I've experienced that. When I'm in a frame of negative towards other people, I start to become negative towards myself. So she would also, if I said something negative about myself, she would call me out and say, Lindsey, I want you to say 3 positive things about yourself right now. And so I think if we can live in that mindset of, I shouldn't be saying these negative words towards other people because eventually that could come back to me as well, and start filling ourselves with those positive conversations, it really does kind of lead to more healthier conversations with our friends, with our family, and with the people around, our coworkers, whoever it is.
And, you know, sometimes it's hard to break that cycle, right? Like I'm thinking like, you know, you have the conversations that you talk about with certain people, right? Like my sisters and I, we talk about like our childhood and it's really easy to fall into that pattern of these are the things that we discuss. And so it does take action on our part to kind of shift that perspective and try to talk about something different. And it will feel uncomfortable for a while because if that's how your relationship has formed, and sometimes that means that maybe you're growing in different directions because maybe you're ready to have positive, uplifting conversations, but the people in your circle aren't there yet or are unwilling to be there. And so you have to kind of fight that tension of, is this how we move forward? Or do we have to kind of figure out and stand up for what we really truly are fighting for?
Yeah. And I think that it goes back to deciding, are you putting an end to this chapter and moving on? Or are you putting an end to the chapter to write the next chapter in that relationship? And either one is okay. And I think sometimes that it's so hard to walk away from relationships because we spent all this time investing into it. But not every relationship is going to be a forever relationship, and that's okay too. It's okay to say, this served me for a season, and this person I have such good seasonal relationships. I have some people in my life who really taught me a lot, and helped my character be the person that I am today. And I'm so grateful for those people in the season that I walked through with them.
Absolutely. I can think of a handful of people that are that for me, right? Like you have different seasons and that really is okay. And I think what we're trying to get to at the bottom of it, you know, at the end of the day, what are you willing to fight for? And is it pushing you in the right direction? Because if it's not, then like we said, you kind of have to evaluate, where am I and where is this going? And sometimes that's just part of growth. Growth happens in different ways. And if we're willing to grow and move forward, sometimes that means that our relationships will become seasonal because of that. Maybe you're growing at a faster rate, or maybe you're growing in a different direction. That doesn't make the relationship bad or wrong. It just means that maybe for this season, it's over for now. but that doesn't mean that it didn't serve a purpose in our lives. And I'm grateful for the seasons of friendship that I've had with people over the years, because like you said, Lindsey, like it teaches you so much. And there's always things you can take away, right? Like you can take away little bits and pieces of this friendship and that friendship that help you build on who you are.
Absolutely. So I would challenge you to take a look at your friendships and decide, do they challenge me? Do they align with my values and what I'm striving for my future? Do they help me raise up to the next bar and where I want to go? And if not, it doesn't mean that you have to end that friendship. Maybe it's a conversation like, hey, I want us to grow together. I want us to raise the bar together. And maybe that's all that needs to happen. Maybe you kind of just feel yourself in that funk of life and you want to shake loose of that too. Have the challenging conversations with people, but look at your table and look at your friend circle. Look at your relationships in general. Sometimes that can even mean family. Sometimes our family are our closest friends, and we get that too. But look at that and just ask yourself, am I fulfilled in these relationships? And if you're not, what's missing and what can you strive to go after? That's a wrap on this episode of Two Maine Friends in a Podcast. Follow us on Facebook or Instagram. You can also send us an email at twomainfriends@gmail.com. And as always, leave us a review wherever you're listening.